Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
You're listening to Bloomberg Businessweek with Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
So be my guest, you've got nothing to lose. Won't you let me take you on a sea cruise?
All right, everybody, and some news out of the cruise industry today. Viking Holdings filed confidentially for an initial public offering as the travel industry continues to rebound from its pandemic-era slump. Viking's listing could raise $500 million or more. Bloomberg News reporting that earlier today.
Our next guest knows quite a bit about the industry, and she actually didn't go to an Ivy League school, she writes in her new book. In fact, she describes herself in that book as, quote, floundering in her 20s, seemingly without direction. She did, though, go from selling cruises door to door to becoming the CEO of the company. That company we're talking about is Celebrity Cruises, the subsidiary of Royal Caribbean Group. All this, Carol, in a brand new book. It's called Making Waves, A Woman's Rise to the Top Using Smarts, Heart, and Courage.
Lisa Lutoff-Perlo is the author. She's also the vice chair of external affairs at Royal Caribbean, and as we said, former CEO of Celebrity Cruises. She joins us from Plantation, Florida. Lisa, so nice to have you here with us. We feel like there's a million ways to start with you. I hope you will indulge us a little bit because I have reported on Royal Caribbean. I've reported on some of your competitors.
I thought you were going to say that you're a sailor.
I am a sailor as well.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting to watch the cruise industry in general, pre-pandemic, make it through the pandemic, which was remarkable, and then come out and seemingly be stronger than ever. Talk to us about the cruise industry, the trajectory that we've seen over the last few years here of, okay, really tough times, and then coming out of those tough times and doing just okay, better than okay.
Yeah, well, you know better than me because you're reporting on us all the time and interviewing many of the executives there. And I think it's pretty well determined and known that, yeah, we're past those dark days and we're full steam ahead. The industry is doing great. I heard what you just said about Viking, and that's just another indication that it's a pretty robust industry right now.
Why do you think the industry is doing so well right now? What is it about cruising that really continues to attract people year after year?
I guess what I would say is that it's the same as all travel. People want to experience the world. They want to get out there. The industry is robust. It's growing. It's exciting. A lot of wonderful new ships out there. And the cruise industry is capitalizing on people's desire to experience things and travel. And people spent 2 years not being able to do that, and now they're coming back in earnest pretty much in all forms of travel, for sure.
Lisa, we got to ask, because in the beginning of your book, you say you never considered writing a book. It was the first thing from your mind, never thought you had an interesting enough story to tell, and yet, FYI, any woman who becomes a CEO is a story. And I can't wait for the day where it's not a story, because my whole trajectory in journalism, and it's several decades, like it has been a story. And so kudos to you for getting there. But what ultimately said, okay, I'm going to write this book?
Well, first of all, a couple of things, if I could, Carol. I agree with you. It will be wonderful when it's not a story anymore. And what was interesting is that when I was first appointed to the role back in December of 2014, it was such a big story, and I was overwhelmed by it. And what I say in the book is I was actually quite annoyed by it because I was getting a disproportionate amount of attention because I was a woman, not because I had worked 30 years and accomplished so much that actually got me into the position. But what I decided, and one of the reasons that I ended up writing the book, was that so many people told me it was a big deal. And I decided at a certain point in time, I was going to lean into that, and I was going to use this disproportionate voice that I had because I was a woman who made it to the CEO position to tell my story. And it's really a story about a young woman in my 20s who started at the bottom and ended up at the top. And it's really, if I can do it, you can do it story.
Well, I love that, right? And we do talk about often you start at the bottom. And in media, often a lot of people do, whether you start as a production assistant bringing somebody coffee and you just work your tail off and you work your way up. Yeah. Having said that, Lisa, right, it was really easy easy to work your way up.
Are you being facetious, Carol?
I am.
Okay.
Take us back to the early days and getting into the industry and what it was like to be a woman in the industry 40 years ago. Any industry, I feel like even 40 years ago was kind of tough.
Sure. Well, my career started in sales and marketing. So for 21 years, I was in a very gender neutral environment, didn't think a lot of it, never thought about being a woman or the fact that it was maybe something that wasn't working to my advantage, or there weren't a lot of us, because in sales and marketing, there are quite a few women, even in leadership roles. I realized there was a gender disparity in 2005 when I went into operations, because that's a very male-dominated part of our business. And again, our industry is old. You just said it yourself, Carol. It was 40 years ago. It's still very much predominantly men in operations, and clearly in the CEO roles and running these brands and companies, it's still predominantly men. I never felt like being a woman impacted my ability to grow or achieve what I achieved in my career. I did find it somewhat of an issue in some of the, I had 3 roles in our company where I was the first woman to ever do it. And I guess I would use the word skepticism when I was put into those roles. A lot of the men that were in those areas of the company were skeptical as to why I was there and if I belonged there. And I just had to build my credibility one interaction at a time.
Lisa, do you think your story is still possible in 2024? And the reason I ask is because it's so rare to find somebody who's been at one company for pretty much their entire career. And yes, you did start working at a very young age in your family business in the restaurant, but I'm wondering if you still see this of somebody starting at one company and then working their way completely to the top of that company, because so often the only way to actually get a promotion or get more money is to jump to another company when you get another offer.
Well, there's a lot of truth in that, Tim. I don't know if I know the answer to your question, because for 39 years I was in one company, and in our company, I see a lot of what happened with me. I see a lot of people who worked their way up for decades. Our company is very committed to hiring from within, developing people, helping them grow, moving them around so they learn more. So I was in a wonderful situation, and it continues to be that way. However, if I think about the new generations and I think about how people are right now, I'm not sure that that's going to happen. And I think part of one of our issues is so many people being remote, and it's difficult to be noticed. One of the things I talk about in the book is conducting your own PR campaign so that you do achieve what you want to achieve and make it to the top. And it's hard to do that if you're not there and visible and interacting every day.
Hey, one thing I want to go back to when you talked about building your own credibility, and that you said it was kind of okay that maybe people had some questions about your ability to do some of these leadership roles. Having said that, because you said people had some hesitation about my leadership and that was fair. Why is it fair? Because, no offense, if you were a guy, they would be like, I got this. Yeah, I don't have all the experience. I haven't done it all, maybe exactly, but I got this. Don't worry about it. And it would be okay. Is it just men, women, in your view and your experience and what you've seen of us just kind of wired differently? Or the world thinking that we're wired differently?
Yeah. Good question. I didn't think about it that way, Carol. When I went into it so here's how I looked at it. I looked at it as, okay, there really have not been any women that have been your boss. There are very few women. There were 3% women on our bridges when I started, and there were 33% when I stepped down last April. And maybe I cut them too much slack in that regard. I was never a captain. I was never a chief engineer. I was never a hotel director, never drove a ship, fixed an engine. So I'm like, all right, maybe they think I need subject matter expertise. And yes, I'm a woman and there are none of us around. I'm looking left and right. And maybe I, cut them more slack than they might have deserved. I didn't think about it that way. But what I decided to do when I met with that skepticism is just to turn it around.
Right.
I come at everything from a very positive angle. And that's how I looked at that. I said, okay, I don't have subject matter expertise, but I guarantee you there's a lot of other reasons why I'm here. And I'm going to show you that in a very short period of time.
All right, Lisa, sit tight. We're going to come back, continue the conversation. We've got more time with Lisa Lutoff-Perlo. She is the author of a new book, Making Waves, A Woman's Rise to the Top Using Smarts, Heart, and Courage.
And just a little tease, we're going to start our next segment with the dark days of March 2020, especially for the cruise industry, because that's where the book opens.
I feel like, you go back there and just that moment of the unexpected of, we're going to shut down the global economy, folks. We're doing it. All right, everybody, I want to get back to our guest. With us is Lisa Lutoff-Perlo. She's the author of a new book, Making Waves, A Woman's Rise to the Top Using Smarts, Heart, and Courage. She's also Vice Chair of External Affairs at Royal Caribbean. She's the former CEO of Celebrity Cruises, which is, of course, a brand within the Royal Caribbean Group. And she's still with us from Plantation, Florida. So good to have you here. We want to talk a little bit about COVID.
I mean, you found yourself at the helm of the company, Lisa, at a time that was incredibly challenging, to say the least. So take us back to March 8th, 2020, which is where your book opens. What happened then?
Well, March 8th of 2020 was actually a really exciting day for me. I boarded Celebrity Edge. We were celebrating International Women's Day, which is March 8th, actually. And we were celebrating a history-making, barrier-breaking event where 100% of our bridge on that ship was manned by women. And Captain Kate was at the helm. So it was a glorious event. We had worked really hard to improve our gender balance on our bridges. We were able to do this. Our guests were excited. Our team were excited. I left the ship on Wednesday, flew home, went back into the office on Thursday, left for the weekend on Friday. And then, as you know, very well know, we had a global shutdown that weekend and ceased operations for 15 months. So what I talk about in the first chapter of the book, Sailing Through the Storm, is I went from the highest of highs in my career to the lowest of lows within 72 hours. And I will never forget that.
I mean, yes. I think about, for us, kind of going through the financial crisis and reporting on it, where we just felt like the world probably felt this way, but the dark days of, oh my God, is this system going to come undone? How did you think about, you were feeling, like you said, from a high to a low, but you're like, I'm responsible for this brand and the people who are connected with it. We got to figure out a way forward. And you obviously have a corporate parent who was involved in it too, but just take us through, initially, how dark it was and what you were thinking.
Well, I was thinking what all of us were thinking is this horrible thing that's impacted the world ever going to end? Are we ever going to see the light at the end of this tunnel? There were so many terrible things happening all at once, including our business shutting down. That was not the least of it, but it was just one of a global nightmare that we were all living through. And yes, our company played a very active role. I was only one of the executives dealing with it, but I did have to think about, as a leader, how am I going to pivot and what are the things that I'm going to do that are going to get the 20,000 people that work under my area of responsibility through this? How am I going to give them hope? How am I going to give them confidence that this is going to end and we're going to get back into business, and our crew members spread all over the world are going to be able to get back to work? And some days I didn't even know that. So I learned more as a leader during COVID than probably the other 37 or 38 years of my career in the company.
What are some of those things you could kind of impart on other people now that you learned in such a short time?
I think the most important thing that all of us as leaders need to understand is when we need to pivot and what we need to be doing and the muscle that we need to be building at any given time. I was a CEO of a brand within a corporate S&P 500 company. Shareholder value, returning shareholder value, transforming the financial performance of the brand was at the forefront of everything I did, how I led, what I thought about every single day. And when you're out of business, you have to think about different things, and you have to downplay those because there is no business to generate, but also you have to be able to switch yourself as a leader from a hard driving, results focused, driven, visionary, strategic thinker to, okay, let me give people what they need right now, which is empathy, which is support, which is compassion, and again, which is hope. And so I really think that some leaders have a really difficult time flexing their style and being different on any given day relative to what the circumstances present. And I learned that during COVID, and I learned that as soon as I was able to do that, the way the team was feeling and the way our employees all over the world was feeling immediately changed, because that's what they were looking to me for. I was that beacon for them, and I needed to remember that every single day when I woke up.
Well, we so appreciate that perspective. And we're going to take you back to the high point just before the pandemic. And you talked about the ship and the role of women and Captain Kate. Our Charlie Pellet is a big cruiser, including celebrity cruises. And he wanted to know, and we're going to ask you, do you follow Captain Kate on Instagram? And what has she done for your brand? And being able to put out a ship, she was the first time that an American woman was named captain of a mega cruise ship. So it was a big deal. What has that done for the brand?
Oh, Carol. Well, she was the first and still only, I might add, American woman to ever be at the helm of a mega cruise ship. She was the captain on Celebrity Edge, which, by the way, was the first ship to set sail out of a U.S. port post-pandemic. January 26, 2021, Captain Kate was at the helm of Celebrity Edge, and we were the first brand to go back into service. She was the first woman to take a ship out of the shipyard in Saint-Nazaire, France. I would follow Captain Kate everywhere, and I follow her on Instagram. And when you think about the things that you're proudest of in your career, appointing her and giving her that opportunity as captain is one of the highlights for me and for her. And she is beloved. She's beloved by her crew, her guests, everybody that encounters her. She's an unbelievable navigator. She's extraordinary in every single way. And she's been a great advocate for celebrity, and she's been a great advocate for women mariners and recruiting them into our company.
Hear, hear. I love it. I'm a sailor. I'm the navigator.
Yeah, I was going to say, Lisa,
boat.
can you tell that Carol spends a good portion of the summer on the high seas? She really does.
I love that, Carol. I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, so we want to do kind of a little bit of a rapid fire round with you if we can. We've got about a minute and a half left. Just quick answers. Okay. Work from home, yes or no, or how you feel about it? You can be honest. Honest.
Mixed and both. Mixed and both. How about that?
Mixed and both.
Yeah, both. Work from home, don't work from home. And I feel mixed. Pros and cons. Okay.
So talk a little bit about your favorite place to cruise.
Quickly.
Alaska.
Wow.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Really?
Or the Galapagos. Anywhere where nature plays a huge role.
All right. Leader you admire. Doesn't have to, you can excuse your current leaders because we don't want to put that on you.
No. Leader, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Because, real quickly?
Oh my gosh, what she did for everybody. Herself, women.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Getcha. Hear ya.
Next act.
Next act.
Yeah.
Or next port. Let's stay with the sailing metaphor. Just got about 25 seconds.
Okay, next chapter. You're going to have to re-interview me at the beginning of May, and I can tell you.
All right. I like it.
Make
See, look at that deep
us.
tease. Look at that.
We'll
add it to the calendar.
I'm not done yet, folks.
All right, Lisa, so appreciate this. Have a great weekend. Lisa Lutoff-Perlo, she is the author of a new memoir, Making Waves, A Woman's Rise to the Top Using Smarts, Heart, and Courage. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. She's cool.
Very cool.
We're going to check in with her. Lisa
May.
Lutoff-Perlo.
Add it to the calendar.
Yeah. There's going to be more.